Derby County were at the heart of a transfer deal for Oscar Fraulo in the January transfer window, but Paul Warne and the Derby County staff were unable to pull it off. The Danish midfielder is currently on loan at FC Utrecht from Borussia Mönchengladbach, and there's a range of different reasons why this deal failed. Now, a lot of people will have just heard the news of the initial transfer interest and then sort of heard it die down and sort of not looked into it a little bit more. But over the course of the last few weeks, I've done a little bit of digging into the transfer of Oscar Fraulo and how Derby County could potentially reinvigorate that interest in the summer and how that deal could potentially come about. Now, it obviously starts when you talk about the failure to sign the player. Now, the rumoured fee was rumoured to be around £3.5 million, and it was supposed to be a deal which took Oscar Fraulo from FC Utrecht back to Borussia Mönchengladbach and then to Pride Park Stadium. This was obviously as a result of a lack of game time that he's currently getting at FC Utrecht. At the moment, in January, when this deal all came about, I think he played about 50 minutes in the space of the last 6 weeks or something like that. And obviously, since then, he has played a little bit more, but it's one of those players where Mönchengladbach want to get their own sort of investment out of it, and if he's not getting game time, he's not going to then get a return on investment for Borussia Mönchengladbach. Now, obviously, at FC Utrecht, the reason why this deal never really went ahead for Derby County was because they have an option to buy the player at the end of his loan spell. Now, for me, that's perfectly fine. But you also have to open the door because they can say no and not buy him. But what I feel is going to happen for Derby County, should John Eustace still want to pick up this midfielder who, if I remember correctly, looked like a really, really good player and would have really fit in with this Derby County setup that we're now playing. If John Eustace does want to go back in for Oscar Fraulo, then it's going to be a case of buying off Utrecht, who are then going to want to make profit on what they've already paid for the player, which will have been a loan fee and then a permanent fee. Now, obviously, the big talking point around this deal at the time was obviously to do with that clause. Now, Derby were all set to pay £3.5 million for the player, and this was before Erin Cashin had moved out of the building. So there was obviously money to spend for Derby County. Now, the problem that arose for Derby, and the reason why this deal could still happen in the near future as we head towards the summer transfer window, is if Utrecht decide to buy, I believe their buy fee is lower than that £3.5 million, which means we can then put that £3.5 million straight back into them. Now, this has happened before with a player who Utrecht had. I think his name was Ryan Flamingo. And they bought him from on a loan spell with an obligation or an option to buy from, I believe it was a Serie A club. I'm not entirely sure which one it was. But then a few months later went to sell him for €9 million, I think it was, to PSV. So there is history of this happening. Now, for me, the conversation point really has to be is, did he ever really want to come to Derby County? Now, throughout the back end of the January transfer window, when this deal was sort of being really spoke about, there was a rumoured quote which came out saying that he was happy at Utrecht and didn't want to move to Derby County. It didn't look as if the style suited him. And that's something which we've heard time and time again of that Paul Warne style of football. Now, obviously now we're under John Eustace, so has that really changed the identity that Oscar Fraulo is looking at? Now, I don't necessarily believe that the style of football is, say, more entertaining to watch. I think the difference is we're more of a forward-thinking team now. We're trying to get the ball into the final third. We're trying to get 5 men in the box to try and create those opportunities to score goals. And I think Oscar Fraulo, had he have been in the squad for Derby County, I think he would have had an excellent second half of the season with us and probably would have been one of our main players. When you look at the injuries we've got to the likes of Ben Osborne and David Ozo, there's no reason why he couldn't have come in and stepped straight into that first team and just flew through the blocks for Derby County. And obviously, the big talking point really over the course of the next few weeks with this Oscar Fraulo deal is going to be, will Utrecht take up that buy option? Because if they take up the buy option, it probably ups the fee that we were originally set to pay, Whereas if they don't, there is a good possibility that we could go back in with the same bid, the same agreement. And the agreement may still even be on the table with Borussia Mönchengladbach should he go straight back. Now, if we do take a little bit of a look into Oscar Fraulo again, which obviously we did do earlier this season when the first link came out. He's made 19 appearances this season. 46% of those have been in the starting 11. 22 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, 1,275 minutes. Now, if we go down to, let's say, his games from the 15th of March to January, he's made 4 starts out of 5 games, 6 games. He spent a lot of time on the bench. And it's not particularly been the greatest season for him, really. If you look at him in the Cramp, I think it's called the Campion Divise, he's been in the squad once, started 1 game. I think that's for Utrecht's youth team, if I'm honest. I think it's for the youth team. But it's one of those for me where, yes, he's made of a lot of appearances, 56 for Utrecht since joining, 5 goals, 6 assists, but he's not really getting starts. And that's where sort of the problem comes for me, because if you're not starting games, there's a huge problem, because you have to be starting to really develop as a footballer. And that is the problem that I see with Oscar Fraulo right now. Now, obviously, there is an option to buy at the end of his contract. At the end of his loan deal. He's 21 years old, so he's got a lot of development still to go as he gets older and goes through the divisions. I do personally believe he won't come to Derby County now, although it's a deal which I would quite like to see happen. I just don't think that it's going to happen. Now, he's got 17 caps for Denmark's under-21s. Has he played in their most recent fixture, which was... It doesn't say they haven't played. Their next fixture is the 24th of March, which is today. They played on the 20th in a 3-3. Did Fulo play? Yes, Oscar Fraulo played in that game and started, which is obviously quite good for him. But what you're wanting is you want those to also be starting at league level and obviously then getting himself into European level. And that's something that we haven't seen. He came off in the 60th minute for Thomas Jorgensen, and the game ended 3-3 for Denmark. It's a disappointing spell for, obviously, for Fulo, because he could have come into Derby County. Now, I know it wasn't something that he was necessarily too excited about when the rumour sort of came about, and based on that quote that came out, whether it was real or not, I'm not entirely sure, but he could have come into Derby and been a massive thing for us over the course of the last 2 months or so. And I do believe that he's exactly the type of player that Derby County need. Now, obviously now with John Eustace in charge, there's no guarantees that Oscar Fraulo is even going to be a name on the lips of Derby County fans or even of the staff at Derby County. Now, if he's already in the recruitment dossier, then he's obviously going to be a player that they may put forward in the summer. But the big question is going to be, will it be dealing with Utrecht or will it be dealing with Borussia Mönchengladbach? Because I can't see us getting him for the same price should he stay at Utrecht and they take the buy option. But if he goes back to Mönchengladbach, he's got 6 months left on his contract. Well, he'll have a year left on his contract, but 6 months less than in January. So it does really open that talking point of, can Derby County get this deal done? Now, obviously, if you have not done so already, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, hit the like button as well. And let me know what you think of Oscar Fraulo, because I think it would have been a good deal in the January window, but it just wasn't something which we could get over the line as a result of many different factors, whether that be finances, Paul Warne's football, or even the loan deal with FC Utrecht. Obviously, let me know your thoughts down below. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and I'll catch you in my next video.